Thank you. And I would like to invite Matthias Schmidt for the first presentation. Or Johannes will? Okay, so Johannes will hold the first presentation about the Austrian situation of the Eastern Imperial Eagle.
Yeah, dear colleagues, I will have a short talk about status and conservation of the Imperial Eagle in Austria. About the lecture, I will have a short introduction about the history of the species in Austria. Some figures I will show about our population development and the nest size and breeding success. We have at least some data on diet composition and on mortality as well, because we had a live project about the species during the last years and collected mortality data from satellite tracked individuals, but also from other eagles found there in Austria. As introduction, Austria lies on the very western border of the global range, as you know. So we are making a quite far journey to the west in this lecture. About the species in Austria, it is a proven breeding species during the last ice age, which we know from bone remains, but historically we don't really know much about the distribution in Austria. There are some breeding records dating up until the 1810 years. So approximately around 1810 to 1820, the species got lost from Austria, probably extirpated by direct persecution. And there were some possible breeding incidents during the period after the Second World War and in 1989. And in 1999, there was the first breeding pair in Austria after some population recovering in Hungary and Slovakia, especially. So if we look at the range map for Austria, we see in 2000, only one breeding pair in the extreme east of Austria. 2010, 2020, and in the last 3 years, we had this development. So the species is recovering very quickly now. If you look at the population numbers, you can see this as well. So it's a near exponential increase. The breeding successes, which is the green line, it's fluctuating a bit more, probably due to weather conditions and diet availability. If we look at the nesting success rate, we have some heavy fluctuations in the first years, but since then it's rather stable, around 75%. And if you look at the fledgling numbers, it's similar. They are stabilizing around 1.5 for all breeding incidents and around nearly 2 or 1.9 for all successful nests. The traditional prey species brown squirrel and hamster, but they are very rare in much eagle territories. Yeah, you see a photo of a camera trap with a mole lying right beneath the eagle. And a colleague of us did a short monitoring via a camera trap in last year. And during 5 consecutive days, the eagle brought 8 hares. So it's obviously really the most important prey. And actually, it's the first nest, I think, monitored by a camera trap. All other analyses were done on prey remains. As I told before, we collected mortality reasons for the species. And a very representative source, of course, are our tagged eagles. Of course, they don't die only in Austria, but also in many neighboring countries. But if we look at the reasons, we see that around 50% of all mortality is caused by persecution, or most probable persecution. Most probable means that we did not get the carcass, but all circumstances point clearly into this direction. The next important reason is our train collisions. Interestingly, we have no vehicle collisions with cars in Austria up until now, but many train collisions, also during the, also within the tagged birds. And up until now, we also have two collided birds which flew into wind turbines. If we look at all the birds found directly in Austria, not only the tagged ones, but all collected specimens, we see direct persecution makes up at least a bit more than 25%. But wind farm collisions also account for 1/4. We expect that wind farm collisions are more likely to be discovered than direct persecution because perpetrators get rid of the carcasses in general. But we see that in Austria, where we have a high overlap between wind farm development and eagle territories, I think the situation is not really comparable to Slovakia or Hungary at the moment. We have more wind farms overlapping. We see a quite high amount of birds killed by wind turbines already. Yeah, and this is also the last slide actually. We see an eagle pair with a nestling. I don't know if you already recognize it. Here it's probably a bit clearer because that's a common buzzard. I wanted to bring this this side note because we had the first two incidents of imperial eagles breeding on buzzard nests. So they, in both cases, lost their actual nest, took over common buzzard nests, bred on the eggs, and the youngs or the young bird in both cases hatched successfully, but only fledged in one case. In this case, the nest was abandoned subsequently when the young buzzard was around 4 weeks old. And it was also interesting that the young buzzards seemed to have some developing problems. It had very pale, nearly blue skin on the legs and on the shears. So probably the eagle diet is not really suitable for young buzzards. But in the second incident discovered by Matthias this year, the buzzard at least fledged successfully. Yeah, thanks to all our supporters, especially the field workers doing the monitoring, which our data is based on, and all supporting institutions nationally and internationally. And thank you very much for your attention.
What is the reason of so big percentage of persecution that we saw?
Actually, we only know from a few cases who the perpetrator really is. Of course, in most cases, we don't know. But I can state quite clearly that it's mostly a hunting issue. So there is like a prey competition between small game hunters and the eagles. We don't really have issues with livestock farmers in general. And out of 13 people persecuted for wildlife offenses during the last years, 12 had hunting licenses. So it's quite clear that it's this competition causing the issue. But of course, I think I don't have to tell you that we cannot see any impact of the imperial eagles on the hare populations. generally hare populations are rising during the last years, probably because of weather or climate conditions, and imperial eagles are rising like proportionately to the hare populations because they rely on them, but we don't see any negative effect within the eagle territories.
Yes.
Yeah, quick question. Yeah, what are the main reasons behind the recuperation, the growing of the population, and if it's and if you know if this effect is happening in the continuous population on the other countries?
I mean, the population growth it affects actually the whole Pannonian Basin, and I guess that we had very suitable areas for imperial eagle all the time, but it was just not possible for them to repopulate the area because of intense persecution. We had many poisoning incidents in the first years of the repopulation phase. It's probably also a reason why it went on quite slowly in the beginning, but now very quickly. So we hope that we see some effect from our work against persecution.
Just a really quick comment. You may do this already, but it's important to X-ray or radiograph all of the dead eagles, even the ones that are electrocuted. We have found in the USA that sometimes an eagle that is electrocuted is shot first, and then it falls and touches the lines. And I think that's also true for vehicle collisions and things like that. So it's the proportion of shooting might actually be higher than you even are aware.
Yeah, thank you very much for the comment. I didn't go into detail like this. We have some standard procedures for all for all species birds of prey which are of high importance. So we all check them in the same manner. We not only X-ray them, we take blood or liver or brain samples for toxicological analysis, and we saw that exactly what you mentioned in some birds brought to rehabilitation centers where they X-ray them, and then they see that they have been shot like months ago. And we had also one incident with a white-tailed eagle, which was shot with shotgun ammunition. Then it was obviously poisoned by shotgun ammunition, which it took in, and then it collided with a wind farm. So also this happens, and we have a very intense look on these toxicological issues, because we don't actually know if there's some influence on like wind farm collisions. So probably birds which are already hampered in such a way collide with those structures.
Okay, thank you.